Okay, so first we do the salutation to the Buddha. Namo Benshi Sujia Moni Fo.
南无本师释迦牟尼佛。
Namo Benshi Sujia Moni Fo.
南无本师释迦牟尼佛。
Namo Benshi Sujia Moni Fo.
南无本师释迦牟尼佛。
Namo Amitabha.
南无阿弥陀佛。
Okay, from Chuang Yen Monastery, I extend greetings to all of the people who will be watching this video. Today we will be performing the spring ritual for the deceased, but because of the special conditions of the coronavirus lockdown, we have to perform them under different circumstances than usual. Usually, as you know, on the first Sunday in May, we have a big gathering here at Chuang Yen Monastery where people who have lost relatives over the previous year or half year come to the monastery in person, and then in the great Buddha hall we have a large recitation ceremony, and then we depart from the great Buddha hall to the Thousand Lotus Terrace in order to deposit the remains of the deceased in the boxes where they will remain permanently. But today, because of the lockdown, we have to perform the ceremony in a somewhat different way. We just have the resident community here, a couple of nuns, the monk Bhante Mangala, and some of the lay staff. And so we're performing this just as a recording that will be sent to everybody who would normally participate in the ceremony. So this is a ceremony in which you say your parting, your final farewell to the remains of your beloved relative who has passed away. And as you all know, that there are many different causes of death. There can be causes, some of the causes of death will be different illnesses, heart attack, stroke, cancer, failure of an organ. There can be people dying in accidents, automobile accidents, home accidents, and some people, we call these the fortunate people, die just of completely natural causes in their old age. People die at different ages. If a person is fortunate, they will live a long lifespan and pass away in their 80s, 90s, in some cases even above the age of 100. Others might die in middle age. Others die when they're in the prime of youth. And even children and infants die. So death takes place at different ages. And even if we are living, we are in the midst of life, strong and healthy and vigorous, expecting to live until we're in our 80s or 90s, we cannot be sure that we're going to live that long, because through unexpected causes, some kind of change in our conditions, death can take place at any time. So therefore we always have to be prepared for death. This is a constant reminder that the Buddha gives us. The people that you have gathered through this video, that you have come to lament and to grieve for their departure, will be people who stood in different relations to you. Probably in most cases it will be your parents, your mother or father. It could be grandparents, grandma, grandpa, could be brothers or sisters, even sons or daughters, or it could be your friends. And so many people will be gathering through the video to watch the ceremony, and the nature of your relations to the people that you have lost could be of many different kinds. So we have many different causes of death, many different ages at which people die, and many different relations in which the deceased might have stood to yourself. But all of you would be coming together here at this spring ritual for the deceased for a common purpose, and that is to say farewell to a loved one, someone that you will miss very dearly. Now, when you come to say farewell to your loved one, you'll experience sorrow and grief. And in my view, it's completely natural and normal to feel, to experience that sorrow and grief. There's a kind of ideal that's sometimes set up in Buddhism that when a loved one dies, one shouldn't feel any grief at all, but you should accept the loss with complete equanimity. Maybe that kind of attitude is possible for somebody of very high spiritual attainments, but for most people, even people like ourselves, myself, to lose a loved one will naturally bring sorrow and grief. So what is it that Buddhism has to offer us to overcome our sorrow and grief? It's not that we just drive the grief away, drive the sorrow away, as though it were a fly that we were pushing away with our hand. But rather, what I would say is that we let ourselves experience the sorrow and grief. This is a kind of healthy practice to help us overcome the grief. We experience it, let it go through the mind, but we experience it in the light of wisdom, in the light of understanding, using mindfulness to experience the grief, but to that mindfulness we add the understanding that impermanence is the very nature of all conditioned things. Every living being we know is impermanent. Every person that has ever lived on this planet in the past has died. And so it's not astonishing, nothing unusual, no departure from the norm for a loved one, a relative, to die. And we know that death can take place at any stage of life. In old age, middle age, youth, even childhood, even infants die. And so when we know that impermanence is the nature of life, that everyone who lives must die, and that death can take place at any time, this understanding helps us to overcome, to weaken, and to overcome our grief. We should also understand that as Buddhism teaches, in the course of this samsara, this round of rebirths, we have ourselves lived countless lives, and the person that has passed away has also lived countless lives. And so through time without beginning, we have come together, we have been related to almost every person that we see. Even if we walk down the street and we pass 100 strangers, it's possible that in some past life, those strangers have been our mother, our father, our sisters, and our brothers. And yet if we hear about their death, right now we don't feel anything special because we've grown distant through the separation across lifetimes. And so we should think that the person, the dear one, that has now been our beloved parent, our brother or sister, our son or daughter, in past lives, that person was a complete stranger to us, and maybe in future lives, again, that person will be a stranger to us. And so all living beings could have been our own mother or father, our brother or sister, our son or daughter. And so when we reflect in that way, we see that it helps us to reduce our grief and sorrow over the death of our loved one. We should also reflect on the nature, the workings of karma. So our loved one passes away, and we wonder, what has happened to our loved one? Has that loved one completely disappeared and vanished? That's not what Buddhism teaches. What Buddhism teaches is that we go through a process of rebirth. And so when we pass away, it doesn't mean the complete end to our existence. It doesn't mean that consciousness just disappears like a bubble that breaks and vanishes, or like a flame that goes out and doesn't burn anymore. But rather, the body dies, but consciousness, the process of consciousness, continues on. And that process of consciousness will go on and take on a new existence. The consciousness will settle upon a new physical body, and again a new life will take place. And so when a being comes into existence at birth, the consciousness of that being has not just arisen out of nowhere, but the consciousness of the little baby who's just come into birth is part of a stream of consciousness that goes back to another living being, another person who passed away previously. And what determines the nature of the rebirth that living beings take is their karma. Karma means action, volitional action, so it's our deeds of body, speech, and mind. And so according to the deeds we do, the good deeds, the bad deeds, the stream of consciousness will take rebirth under particular conditions in the new existence. If a person has generated a lot of unwholesome karma, then the stream of consciousness will lead to a difficult rebirth in planes of misery and suffering. If the person has accumulated merits, has done good deeds, then the stream of consciousness will pass on to a good destination, a good state of rebirth, where they will experience good fortune and happiness. So the process of rebirth and the workings of karma should remind us that it is our own responsibility, our own duty in this life, while we have the opportunity to accumulate vast stores, vast amounts of wholesome karma, of good merits, merits that will help us, when we pass away, move on to a happy rebirth. And now many people have the question, what can we do for our beloved relatives who have passed away? Do they just inherit the results of their own karma and we can do nothing to help them? That's not what the Buddha teaches. The Buddha teaches that it's possible to help our beloved relatives, especially when they are in the transition stage from one existence to the next. What we can do to help our relatives pass on is to do deeds of merit, to do good deeds, pious deeds, virtuous deeds on their behalf, on their name, and in our minds we dedicate the merit to them. We invite them, we inform them that we're performing these merits on their behalf. We ask them to witness from their new plane of existence, to witness the merits done on their behalf, and to rejoice that we are doing these merits on their behalf. And in this way, when they rejoice, they are able to share in the merits, to obtain the merits, to help them in their passage from their old life to their new life. And so you who are listening, or watching and listening, and want to help your relatives pass on safely and securely to their next existence, you should remember first that we here at the monastery are performing some deeds of merit, reciting sutras and mantras, and dedicating the merit to your departed relatives to help them to pass on happily to the new existence. And you too, at home, should do some meritorious deeds. You can worship the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, bow down to them. You can recite the Buddha's name, Namo Amitabha, Namo Guanche Yin Pusa, Namo Ditsang Wang Pusa, and so on. You could recite sutras. You can do loving kindness meditation. You can do meditation on the figure of the Buddha. You can make some donations to worthy causes, even through the internet, to help the poor, the sick, the hungry. And then in your mind, you bring together this merit, and you think of your departed relatives, and you make the vow, the wish, may my departed relatives, whether parents, brothers, sisters, and so on, may they witness these meritorious deeds I have done in their name. May they rejoice in these merits, and may these merits help them to pass on happily to the next existence. Okay, so with this, I'm going to end this Dharma talk. And I end with the wish and the hope that all of you who are listening are keeping well and safe. And please continue to observe the guidelines laid down by our state to observe, stay at home when possible, to keep a distance from others when possible, when going out to wear your masks, when handling items, wear rubber gloves, which you should then discard. And please keep well and safe. And hopefully there'll come a time when you can return to the monastery to visit the Thousand Lotus Terrace in order to pay homage to your departed relatives. And may all blessings be with you.
捡起。